Okay, well, it's 4 o'clock, so I'm going to start us off. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Financial Literacy webinar, Parent Webinar. My name is Janet Burkhart, and I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Financial Services. With me today is Kelly Graves, Associate Director of Advising in Financial Aid. And we have two colleagues, Kathy and Richard, who are going to help answer some questions or bring them to the forefront of questions we need to answer to the group. So please put your questions in the question and answer, and we'll try and get to them. I want to say thank you so much for attending this webinar, and we're so delighted that you and your students are becoming part of the DU community. We really hope this helps you understand a little bit of the administrative workings of the university, and we can't wait to meet you in person on campus. So I'm going to let Kelly take the first part of the webinar. She'll talk about financial aid, and then I'll talk about the other side of the house, which is the bursar's office and a little bit of card office functioning. So take it away, Kelly.
Kelly, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. And are you able to see the slides?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So we'll just a little overview first of what we're going to talk about today. And basically, we're going to discuss the role of financial aid, as well as student financial services, talk a little bit about funding options, special circumstances, as well as student billing, payments, refunds, and then like Janet said, we'll have some time for questions, hopefully. So the roles of the two offices. For the financial aid, we process aid applications. Most of y'all probably have done the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Those are the two main applications. Then based on that information, we award scholarships, grants, loans, work study. We then send aid offer letters out to students, and we, most importantly, advise and counsel students as they have questions, and we help them resolve those issues that they might have. Okay, let's see. Thank you. Just so this is not in presentation mode. So let's see. Is it now? Hopefully it is. This makes it a little bit easier for you guys to see the slides. So then Janet's area, the student financial services, they deal with actual student billing. They help with payment plans, set those up. If there's a health insurance waiver that needs to be processed, they help with that. And they also do the Pioneer ID cards. So let's talk a little bit about financial aid eligibility to start out with. For those not familiar, most DU grants and scholarships require full-time enrollment. And for undergraduates, that's 12 or more hours. There are some exceptions with other types of aid programs, such as loans. You, for the most part, have to be just half-time for those, but full-time is required for most aid options. It's also important that students maintain satisfactory academic progress, also known as SAP. For undergraduates, that requires a 2.0 cumulative GPA, and it's a little bit higher for accounting students at 2.5. And the other component is that students must complete and pass at least 66.6% of all courses attempted, so 2/3 of their classes. And I just want to point out that courses attempted does include dropped classes, and so when students drop or withdraw, just keep that in mind, that might affect their SAP eligibility. And then it's important to note that gift scholarships, endowed scholarships, and private scholarships might have some different and additional requirements for those. So let's talk about work study. That is based on, again, the FAFSA that allows students to receive, or participate in work programs on campus. There's a few that are off campus as well. Not everyone gets this aid option provided to them because we have federal and state allocations, so we don't have just endless amounts of funding for it. But if they are and they want to choose to do work study, then your student will have to seek out a job. So some parents not knowing think that maybe the jobs are assigned, but it doesn't really work like that. They'll have to apply and interview for those positions. And it's a little bit different too, because unlike other aid options, it doesn't just apply directly to your student's account. Instead, they're issued through payroll. So they'll get a paycheck every 2 weeks. And we also have on here, and hopefully Annabelle will be able to send out the presentation to you guys if you don't already have access to it, but you can go to our Pioneer Careers website and it'll list all those jobs for you. So what happens if your student didn't get a work study option? Well, never fear, there are some other options for on and off campus employment. You go to that same website to find those. And we also listed a different website here. That's the one that kind of gives you a little more context, gives students a little more information, gives them the handbook and a little toolkit to help them interview and apply for jobs. It also has a link to some really good resources to build their skills. And I also wanted to point out, because it's not always apparent, that it is a job just like any other. The student will have to complete an I-9 form. Usually, that means a passport, or if they don't have a passport, a driver's license and social security card. So just keep that in mind, that they will need that documentation to begin work here. And we want to touch on student loans. Again, these are made through the FAFSA application, which you have to do every year. Just want to point that out. There's direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans, and depending on your student's classification, they can get up to $7,500 a year. For freshmen, it's a little more limited. They can borrow up to $5,500 a year from this program. The funds do directly disperse to student accounts. They don't go to the student first, they'll just go to DU. And there are a couple additional requirements for them to actually credit to the student accounts. The student will have to do a master promissory note, so an MPN, as well as loan interest counseling. And those are both completed at studentaid.gov. And we put in here also the interest rate. The interest rate for the upcoming year is 4.99%. In case you haven't heard, the Fed has bumped up some of those interest rates. So it's a little bit higher this upcoming year than it is currently. So we also have, because the student loan program from the federal government, the direct loan program, is fairly limited, as I mentioned, as far as how much you can borrow each year. They do have a different programs for the parents. The parents will borrow for their undergraduate student. They also have to do a FAFSA. For the student has to do the FAFSA. And it's a little bit different in that repayment, unlike the student loans, the repayment will automatically, be deferred when the student's enrolled at least have time. For parents, repayment begins shortly after disbursement. That being said, you can work with your lender and get into a forbearance situation, allow you to put off repayment until your student graduates. But keep in mind, all that interest is still accruing on that loan. So the other big thing about this particular loan program is you can borrow up to your student's cost of attendance minus any other aid they have. So unlike the direct loan student program, where there's an annual limit that's fairly small, this one does allow you to borrow up to the full cost of attendance minus the other aid. You have to apply at studentaid.gov, and it does look at your credit. So you can't have any adverse credit. So if you have any defaults or bankruptcies or anything like that, you're not going to be able to get approved. There's an appeal process, but if you have any questions, you can go to studentaid.gov. They've got a really great information about that loan program. And it's important to point out that that interest rate is also higher on that particular loan. So student loan, 4.99. For the parent, it's 7.54. But if that isn't a good option, there are also private lenders that are willing to lend money to help you with your students' educational costs. This particular types of loan would not require FAFSA, but it is still credit-based, and it really has a varied, depending on the lender, the interest rates and repayment is really different depending on the lender. So make sure you research that. Again, some of them, some lenders will offer you an option to postpone your payments. So that might be something you research. And we put in here a little blurb about managing those out-of-pocket expenses, because we know loans have to be repaid. They're not ideal in a lot of cases, but there are some ways to manage those costs. And so that website gives you some really good information, talks about private scholarships and different ways that you can research private lenders if that's the route you want to go. And speaking of private scholarships, I just want to put a couple of words out about this. It's really important for your student if they're interested in trying to get some free money, and who isn't. They can go to the basic internet and search. There's a couple listed on this slide: scholarships.com, fastweb.com. They're really good. Caveat on private scholarships. Please be aware you should never have to pay for a scholarship. So if there is the organization is asking you to pay a fee, please be very leery of that, because that should not be the case for a legitimate scholarship. We also wanted to let you know that in rare circumstances, because that private scholarship is considered financial aid, we may have to adjust something on your student's financial aid offer in order to accommodate that. We try very hard not to have to reduce any other grants and scholarships. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often, but just wanted to give you warning that that is possible. And lastly, just have a blurb on here that yes, you do have to submit those scholarship checks to us, and we will make sure that they get credited to your student's account. And lastly, I just wanted to hit on special circumstances, especially in this age of COVID. This pandemic's really hurt a lot of people, really changed their financial outlook and their financial situation. If that's the case with you, if you've done your FAFSA, your profile, you use 2020 tax data, and that's really not your current situation, maybe you've lost a job, or maybe you've had to take a pay cut, email us, let us know what's going on. We have some really good information on our web about it, but we'd be glad to walk you through that process. So if you've lost some income, or if that is just not a good reflection of what your family is currently going through financially, let us know. We'll be glad to help. And now I'm going to kind of pass the gavel, or whatever we want to call it, to Janet so she can talk about tuition statements.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Kelly. So I like to say financial aid gives it, and the student billing and bursar's office takes it away. So here's what happens. I know there's been some questions about when you're going to see merit scholarship on your tuition, your student's tuition account. And what we typically do is once your student registers, which I know registration is happening for most first year students at the end of July, we will then, their registration will go on to their student account, and then we will run the process then to put on any of the merit aid that they've been awarded, any of the loans that they've been awarded, and it will all come onto their student bill. So what we do is we post bills to what we call DU Pay, and it includes all of the activity for the month. We post those bills on the 1st of each month, and then payment is due on the 22nd of each month. And like I said, it's all activity included in the prior month. So if housing charges come on, you're going to see those housing charges. If any other types of charges come on, or let's say your student originally gets charged for health insurance and then subsequently waives, after we've sent the bills, then the next billing cycle, you'll see that waiver on there. So they really are point in time. And you can view, but if the bill is one day, right? That happens on the 1st. If something happens on the 2nd, you can view your real-time data via DU Pay. So now you're all asking me, Kelly's in control. How do you get to DU Pay? So students access DU Pay through MyDU. There's a link that can go out. MyDU is very new to all of us. So right now, all I can tell you is once your students log on to DU Pay, have them search, or they log into MyDU. See, I don't even have the language right yet. They can just search for DU Pay and it'll bring them up. Parents access DU Pay through a completely different link, which is via the bursar's webpage. So you have to go there to get to DU Pay, and it says make a payment. We're very clever. So what can happen then is that first, your student has to set you up as an authorized user to say, yes, my parents can see my bill, and they can decide who else can see their bill, who can't see their bill. What will happen once your student sets you up as an authorized user, you will get 2 emails. The first one says, here's the link. The second one says, here's your temporary password. Please go out and take care of that. That link is timed. So as soon as you get that link, you don't want to go out the next day and do it, because then the link will expire. So once you get those 2 email messages, you want to go out and set up your account. The nice thing about this is that students can set up multiple users. Once you're authorized user, then when we post the bills, both you and your students will get an email saying a new bill has been posted, and then you can go out there and look at those. The nice thing too is that each user in the system can set up their own stored payment method. So you can set up your checking account and your student can't see it, right? So, my kids love to have free money, but I didn't want them shopping at Amazon with my checking account. So if you put your checking account information in there, your student can't see that, and vice versa. So it all is separate. If there's multiple authorized users, everybody's information stays separate. And you can store those payment methods. So students log on to Do You Pay, select Authorized Users tab, and then they enter your email address. So that's your Gmail, your Hotmail, what do you have for your email? And then, like I said, you receive 2 separate emails. The students can get on there right now and set up your authorized users so that when we send those initial bills, you're going to have them. All right. Students can revoke the access. That's a dinner table conversation I'm not getting involved in. You manage your own password and your account preferences. You can store, like I said, you can store your personal account information. It's not visible to your student. And your student can give you access to different levels of their account. They can give you access to statements, and that's all you get to see. They can give you access to account activity and history, and they can also give you access to 1098-T tax forms, which we send in January of each month. And those tax forms help you determine whether or not you or your student are eligible to claim an educational tax credit based on how much you've paid to the university, and it's also based on your adjusted gross income. So those are all the things that you can view through Do You Pay. All right, financial aid disbursement. So financial aid pays directly onto the student's account 10 days prior to the start of each term. But when you get the bill, you will see that as authorized aid. So you will see, what you'll see is the charges, you'll see any eligible aid that your student is going to receive on the disbursement date, and then we'll give you the net due. So you don't have to worry about, well, how am I going to be able to pay, how am I going to pay this bill if I don't know how much financial aid they're getting and it hasn't been dispersed. You'll see that all on their bill. And then excess financial aid is refunded to the student. So if you do have a PLUS loan, you can decide with your student whether it is refunded to you or refunded to your student. If you don't have a PLUS loan, any refunds will be sent directly to your student. All right, I'm going to say one more thing about refunds, and then I'll talk about payment plans. We strongly suggest that every student send up a direct deposit for their refunds. If you think they're going to get them at all during their time in college, I would say please set up their direct deposit. It's safer, and those mailed checks, students move. Mine did, yours will. So let's just make sure that we don't have to have these paper checks following students around. We can just send them right to the bank, and it's very secure. And insider tip, you get those refunds faster if you have direct deposit. So payment plans, you have the opportunity to sign up for a payment plan. If you sign up, once you get your bills in August, you can sign up for a payment plan, and then your payments would be due August, September, and October. It's all done in thirds. Do You Pay will separate it all out for you, send you the bills at the right moment. Payment for payment plans is due on the 15th of each month. There is a $50 enrollment fee per quarter. And so in fall quarter, like I said, August, September, and October, if your students are a little tardy and they don't get registered until the September bill comes out, you do have the option to do a 2-pay plan. Then in winter quarter, we send out the bills December 1st. You can sign up for a payment plan, and those will be due December 15th, January 15th, February 15th, and then spring quarter, those bills go out March. So then you have your March, April, May, and those are, again, all payment plans, $50 per quarter, and the bills get sent to you on a regular basis. And you can set up you can schedule payment. So if you get that bill on the 1st and you have a payment plan, you can say, schedule my payment for the 15th. So you can kind of set it up and know that it's taken care of and you don't have to worry about it. So that's a nice option. Okay, payments. Electronic payments are the fastest and most accurate method. When you make a payment through Do You Pay, it goes right to your student's account and we can see it that day. You don't have to worry about, are the checks coming? So you can do that through DU pay. Right now, all DU takes is ACH payment. We are working on a project with our IT team and our DU pay partners that we will be accepting credit cards. It may not be ready for August 1st, but as soon as it's ready and we can accept credit cards, we will be sending an email to everyone, letting them know, and we'll put a big splashy announcement on our Bursars webpage and on the DU Pay website. You will have to pay a convenience fee to make those credit card payments, but they will become available to you. You can also do wire transfers. Those are pretty fast. And if you're an international family, it's really easy to track those wire payments through the system. If you want to come and visit us, we will take cash, personal check, money order, cashier's check. You can also mail them to us too. So I know a lot of parents do 529s. If you do that, just make sure that your 529 company puts your student's name and ID number on the check, so we know whose account to post it to. And all of these options are available for you to look at and research at du.edu/Bursar. All right, let me give you a couple little things about the ID card office. So the ID card, your students will have been getting lots and lots of email from my ID card office colleagues. And what we're asking every student to do is to upload a photo to the ID card system. You can't have hats, you can't have sunglasses, no funny faces. Don't send group photos. I'm sure your student knows who they are in the group. We don't. We prefer not to have pictures of the cats and the dogs in the photos, just this photo of your student. And we will use those to create their ID card off their ID, and that ID will be available for them when they check in. So it's a very seamless process, and it makes things go a lot faster if we have those ID cards ready for them when they check in. And this year, I think we're giving away lanyards, so pretty good. So I think I've hit the highlights of payments, and like DU Pay is a really great resource because you can see everything in real time. You just have to ask your student to make you an authorized user. The other thing I want to mention is that once your students get here, there is this federal law called FERPA. It's a privacy law. Your student has to sign a FERPA release that enables anyone at the university to speak to you in detail about your student's account. So unless that's on your student's account, and if you call and the student hasn't given you FERPA permission, we'll be happy to talk to you about how bad the Rockies are, how great the avalanche are, what the weather's like in Denver, but we won't be able to give you any details about your student account. And FERPA is different than authorized users. Authorized user gives you access to see DU Pay. Authorized user does not give you FERPA release. So you really do have to have both of those things in place for us to give you the full picture of your student's information. And you can do that through DU Pay. I'm not through DU Pay, I'm sorry, my web. I'm still getting used to my DU. You can do that through my DU. Your students can fill it out, say who gets what they can see. They can give you access to their financial information, but not their grades. Again, that's another dining room table conversation. Kelly, Richard, Kathy, and I are not getting involved in that one. So it's just up to you to decide with your students, and they can do it for a time frame. So they can say starting the first day I walk on campus to the day you're hoping they graduate. So it'll cover a time frame. So I would definitely get that in place before your student comes. So if you do have questions, we can give you very detailed information. Okay, now I think we're ready for question and answers. I've talked long enough.
Do we have any questions left?
Okay, so I'll take a couple of these. So you will get your first invoice for your freshman this fall on August 1st. If they register in the first time registration in July, you will get your first bill on August 1st. The deposit that you made will be included in that first initial bill. So you should be able to see that. We will release them when those bills go out. So you can't see them yet, but you will when the bills go out. FERPA releases, have your student go to MyDU because the students have to do it, and have them search for records release. Like I said, MyDU is completely new to me. I used to be able to tell you how to navigate it through Pioneer Web. If you can't find it on MyDU, I would say to go to du.edu/registrar, because the registrar is in charge of FERPA releases. And then a review when the first payment is due. If you're not doing a payment plan, bills are always due on the 22nd. We send the bills on the 1st. We send they're due on the 22nd. If you sign up for a payment plan, payments are due on the 15th. I think there's a question about work study.
Yes, I see someone mentioned something about talking more about work study, but I'm not exactly sure what specifically the question is. We have, work study at du.edu website dedicated to questions about work study. So if you have something specific, feel free to email us, let us know. I mentioned just the overview of the process. Students do have to go to the POC to find the job, and they'll have to, interview and do all that good stuff. But I'm not exactly sure what more information. What is the pay rate? That does vary. And it's asking if they have a DU parent waiver. If you have work study award, then you can search for jobs through that work study process. However, there are some other opportunities even if you don't have a work study award. So having a tuition waiver doesn't prevent you from getting work study or having your student be able to work on campus.
There was a question about where you can find the FERPA releases. Richard put that link into the chat. So take a look at the chat and you'll be able to see the link in the chat.
Yeah, and I see another question about, can they, without financial aid? Yes, go to that same POC website and you can look for jobs. Even if you don't have a work study award, there are some other options there.
Okay, I'll do a couple of these. For the first bill will be 1/3 of the total cost of attendance. It'll be, yes, that is correct. The only caveat is that if your students register for the same amount of credit hours for the entire year, then yes, it is 1/3. And then if you're wanting the health insurance, we charge health insurance in the fall and in the spring. So that's the only little variance in the different quarters. And then can you make one payment before the due date if the checks are coming from different places? We will take checks anytime you send them. You want to send them on, you can send them on July 30th. As long as there's a student number on them, we will get them onto your student's account. So yeah, that's no problem at all.
I'm seeing here a question about scholarship and aid in years 2 and beyond stay pretty much the same as year 1. And that is definitely true if your income is about the same. Now, if there's some swings in your income or untaxed money coming into the household, or maybe your family size changes, that can affect your need-based grants and scholarships in subsequent years. Now, merit scholarships are static, so they stay the same amount and don't require FAFSA profile. They're going to be the same regardless. But yes, for the most part, if your income is and family is pretty stationary, then so will your aid. Janet's just asking, when do you have to waive the health insurance? Oh, okay, you've already got that.
Yeah, I was just getting that. So health insurance waivers have to be completed by week 3 of the quarter. So your students can, when they register for their courses, end of this month, they can waive that. Just make sure that when they sit down to waive it, they have your insurance card, so they have all the information, because they will need to give the waiver site the name of the health insurance and phone numbers and things like that. So make sure they have it. This is another one of my parent tips, having sent a couple of kids to college. Take a picture. If they're not going to have a health insurance card with them, take a picture front and back so they have that information with them. Just, parent tips, been through it once or twice.
And do you know how much is it $36.20 a year for the health insurance for this upcoming year? Is that the amount, Janet? Do you know?
I'm going to let Kathy answer that.
I'm looking it up. Yes, it is $36.20 for the year.
Woo, got one right. Okay, good.
There's a question, if you send a large payment, will the credit be available for next term? As long as you tell us that, then we will hold the payment and use it to pay for subsequent terms. If you don't tell us that the excess should stay on the student account, we're very efficient at getting refunds out the door. So if you're going to send an excess payment, please do send something to bursar@du.edu. Let us know your student's name and their student number. And yes, it is the number that they log on to the Pioneer Web MyDU with. It's an 87 number. You'll hear many people on campus refer to it different ways. I'm a dinosaur, so I say student ID number. Okay, I'm going to answer. So there is a difference between the health insurance and the student health fee. You can waive health insurance. Any undergraduates are able to do that. Undergraduates by DU policy cannot waive the health and counseling fee. And that health and counseling fee lets students go up to our student health center and get care, and it's for a reduced price. So I don't know all of the pricing schedules of student health. You can, there's probably going to be a webinar for them, but you can also call their office and look for their website. But that student health and counseling fee does allow them access to the clinic regardless of where they're getting their insurance from. The deadline to waive the health insurance is at the end of week 3. Kathy's telling me 9/30/2022 is the deadline. Okay, when are different dorms different prices, and will that be reflected on the bill? Yes, depending on where your student lives and what type of room they have, there will be different rates, and all of those charges will be on the bills when we send them. So you'll have all that information right in front of you when you get that bill.
And just to reiterate, Janet, there's no way to waive the health counseling fee, or is there?
There, you can waive health insurance. Undergraduates by DU policy cannot waive the health and counseling fee.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There was a question about the health insurance offered at DU versus the parent health insurance. I would actually say that what you want to do for that is take a look at the student health site. And when I stop talking, I'll go look to see what the link is and post it in the chat, and look at what the benefits there that are offered versus what you might be receiving as a parent through your employer or on the exchange or wherever you're getting your health insurance from. But that it's just something that you want to take a look about at the benefits. And I'm going to go look for the website.
Janet, I just posted it on your chat.
Can they go ahead and set up direct deposit now, or do they have to wait until they're actually maybe registered?
They should be able to do it now.
Okay,
It's not dependent on registration.
thank you.
And again, go to my DU and just type direct deposit and it should come up for you. We're quickly going through all the Q&A.
Yeah, there's a bunch. There was a question about the amount of work study students can earn, and the amount that we've offered is base kind of amount. If there is a student that's working a bunch, or they have maybe some specialized skills and they get paid a little more, you can, work with your employer to see if maybe we can increase the work study award. That has been done. So that's an option if your student is earning more than what was originally offered. But there's also limitations. Conversely, there's limitations. So have your student, if that's the case, talk with their supervisor, and they'll reach out to our work study team, and we'll be able to determine if we can increase that award or not.
There's a question about once we accept credit cards, we'll be able to pay with everything with a Visa. Everything on that student bill will be able to be taken care of with your Visa, MasterCard, Discover. We'll be taking that. And there is also, I see that you can't copy and cut and paste. We'll try and put that up on the web when we'll ask Annabelle to get some of those links out there for you. And then there was one more I was going to answer. There was a question about how will you know where your students are going to be living? Housing assignment announcements will be coming from the Department of Housing, and I don't know what their schedule is for releasing that information, but they will be coming from the Housing Department.
Okay, so the feedback is that the page is not enabled for current user role for direct deposit. So I don't know if there's just a delay in that, or what's the student, I guess they're having trouble enrolling in direct deposit.
Okay. Let us work with our IT people.
Yeah.
We can put some.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit easier to just email us and let us look at your individual situation on some of these.
And there was a question about elaborating on which records the student should release. That's a conversation you need to have with your student. They can choose to say all information, only financial information, grade information. Those are conversations we don't guide at all. It's just a conversation you should have with your students about what they're comfortable giving you access to versus what you'd like to see. Again, dining room table conversations.
Exactly right. We want to stay out of that. They're asking about the merit scholarship and the admission letter, which is also should be on your student's financial aid offer. It will appear as a credit on the bill when they're enrolled at least full-time hours, which, like I had mentioned earlier, is 12 hours. So yep, that will automatically get done. So there's nothing additional you need to do to take care of that. sorry, I have a question about outside scholarships appearing on the bill. And those will be actually processed once the funds come in. So our team over here, we have a scholarship team, and once the checks come in, they'll be able to put that as a credit on your student's account. It's asking about, okay, so we have a question about a ballpark figure on what will change for aid, and that's really difficult to determine. If it's something like that, you know, because you're concerned because you got a larger raise, you know, that is actually factored into the formula. You know, if cost of living goes up, that's, so your raise may not make a much of a difference, because that's also factored into the expected family contribution calculation. So all that to say, it's very difficult, but you know, I just encourage you to email us, and we also have great staff to help with phone questions. So if you have some specific stuff that you need to know, don't hesitate to reach out, and we can kind of help provide a more specific answer to your question. Is Annabelle here? Because we're getting some, they would want to make sure all the links in the chat are available to them. Is that something that's going to be available to them, Annabelle?
Yes, I'll put all the links that are getting sent out in the description of the YouTube video that we will upload with this presentation.
And will the Q&A be posted along with the video?
It won't be a specific transcript, so it won't be exactly the Q&A, but I will post the most frequently asked questions and our answers to them.
Right, and again, in the presentation, there's information for both our offices. And you can go to du.edu/bursar, du.edu/finaid, and find a lot of information. Our phone numbers are out there, our email addresses out there. Don't hesitate to reach out. There's full complements of staff ready to answer questions.
Exactly, yeah. We're always glad to help, advise and counsel.
I'm going to put in one more shameless plug to encourage your students to upload those photos so that we have their ID cards ready when they get here, because really nobody wants to stand in line when it's a 2-hour line to get those ID cards, those ID pictures taken. So get them uploaded so that we can have them ready when your students arrive on campus.
Good advice for sure.
All right, so if there are no more questions, we can end this here. As always, reach out to either Kelly, Janet, Kathy, or Richard if you have any questions related to student finances, and reach out to my office at parents@du.edu if you have any other general questions about being a parent, family member, or support system for a student here at DU. Have a good one.
We look forward to seeing you in the fall. Bye, everybody.